Rick Gomez. Rick, how are you?
I am terrific. Thank you for having me.
So we only have you for an hour. Let's go to the audition process. We've heard from everybody else that they walked in, they had a character in mind, they read for 4 or 5 different people, and then they called back and made you read for the specific character, and then you were like, man, I really screwed that up. And then you get the call back and you got the part. Is that exactly the same thing that happened to you?
This is going to be fun for you guys because I have a different story.
Oh, yay! Thank you.
And I think I'm probably, well, I shouldn't say I know this for sure, but you haven't heard anything different from that. I'm going to give you a different story because I think I probably have the only different story. I think. I met with Tom. I met with Meg, obviously the casting person, and she said, do it better. And I tried it a few different times, and she said, nah, I might be able to show that to somebody. And then I had an audition with Tom. And I had a character in mind, like you said, and we went in there and we worked 4 or 5 characters with Mr. Hanks. And then we started to zone in on something, and I had a play to go back to New York and do that I committed to. So Meg, being the wonderful human being that she is, said to Tom, first of all, Tom was like, all right, get the hell out of here, you're done. So I walked out of the room, and I kind of looked at Meg and gave a little bow of thank you, and she said, wait outside. And then I just heard basically, and I went, oh, this is, what's going on? And I heard Meg go, he's got this play. I mean, he can't back out of this play. So if Steven's going to have all these mix and matches, you're not going to have that guy for me. Bring him back in. So I came back in.
Wow.
And I wound up doing a really extensive audition in which he got different angles and he wanted me to do different takes. And basically my mix and match happened on the day.
Wow.
And I was in there for about 25 minutes, maybe a half an hour. And then I went home and heard that from my agent that night that, pending Steven's approval, Tom's already signed off.
Wow.
So before everybody got to the mix and matches, I had already heard. Now, the mix and matches happened, and, you could change your mind. You could go, that guy who did the tape that we really liked, screw him. We like this other kid better. So it was a little bit, shaky ground there for a little bit, but tenuous. But we got, it turned out okay. But it was, the one thing I did not do with Band of Brothers, the one bonding thing I did not do is I did not have the mix and match with Frank and Jimmy and Richie and Ron, and I didn't get a chance to be in that room and mix and match with those guys. Some of those guys, that was the first time they met. So when we went to boot camp, there was like, hey, you knew guys were going to be in there, but you'd had one story already locked down, which was your mix and match day, and how intensive a day that was, and I missed that.
Were you like the first guy actually cast then? I mean, you. Well,
I don't know because there's different things about people had heard words, had heard, rumblings beforehand. Like I know Frank had heard early on, but you still had to go to the mix and match because they were mix and match with other guys. You know what I mean? They wanted to see how the guys were working with each other. So I'm not sure if I was the first one to know. I'm sure Ron was in the mix a bit earlier, but I may have been one of the earlier ones to know that at least I was heavily in consideration. And so, I did not breathe a word of it until all the I's were dotted and T's were crossed. But they told me pretty early on that it was going to be. And Tom said to me, which character, when I came back in the second time, he said, which character's really talking to you? Like, who do you think's most interesting for you? And so that's when I always was attracted to Luz as a character. I just thought, that's going to be a fun one to do. And so I chose that, and then we just hammered that home with him. It was really great, man. It was such a, you're working with Tom, you're reading with Tom, and all the guys have that story, but there was something special, and I'm sure each guy has his own special thing that happened, but there was something special with me where, he would say, can you do, how's your Schwimmer? How's your David Schwimmer? Impersonation. And I would go, I don't really know that I have a day. He goes, yeah, it's like stupid doofy guys like, hey, Chandler, blah, blah, blah. And Tom would do Schwim, right? And he didn't say stupid doofy guy. Dave, I'm sorry. David's a friend of mine. Mr. Schwimmer is a friend of mine. But he said, like the guy, blah, blah, blah. And I said, and I was like, oh, yeah, no, that's a really good, like, Tom would do it, make me laugh. And then I would go, yeah, it's a really good way to do it. I'll just imitate you doing him. You know what I mean?
Absolutely. The girls have lost all composure. They're just giggling. God, that's awesome.
Yeah, so it's like an opportunity to be completely entertained by, like we have. I can harp on just this read with Tom as a whole hour, but we had this stuff where you're doing it and we're talking back and forth, and I'm watching an actor inside of this process that happens to be his generation, one of his generation's greatest actors, and I'm so thoroughly entertained by what he was doing that it almost loosened me up to be able to do some good stuff myself. Instead of it being more tense, he kind of was like, something like this. Like, he's just kind of throwing the ball around with you, and you're going, oh my God, that's, it's being thrown by Goose Gossage, or, probably not the greatest, Nolan Ryan, there you go. That's
Nolan Ryan's way better than Goose.
Yeah, Goose Gossage. I picked the one, like, my childhood hero who never panned out and did anything right with his life. Good going.
Yeah, but he had a great name, so that's why he's sticking in everybody's head.
But now I've completely insulted Schwim. I made Hank's Goose Gossage. This interview's over. No.
Now, when you were doing this thing with Hanks, was he? Since you were so far ahead of the game, was he just in the middle of growing that fantastic beard, or was he full on bearding?
He was just. I think no. In fact, I think he probably was shaved, and then by the time we got to boot camp, which was much later, he probably was. You know why? I'll tell you why. Because he wasn't thin at all. So he must have just been done finishing the first part of it, the first leg.
Hey, hang on just a second, Rick. We got a caller for you.
This is Lana.
Hi, Lana. Yes, it is Lana Luz calling you, Rick.
Are you kidding me? Hey, what's happened? I've been talking to you forever.
I know. I miss you.
How's the family?
Oh, what a great guy. Oh, gosh, we're growing by leaps and bounds. How are you?
Oh my God! And I get the boys are huge, and it's crazy. Life is just like I have to take a breath, and I turn around and everybody's 2 inches taller and more of a wise ass than ever before. I miss you guys so much, man.
Oh, how's your wife? She's so sweet.
She's terrific. Lana, Frank and I did this movie together called Leave that you have got to see. Frank Hughes and I.
Oh, great! I'd love to.
I think we're going after the Rhode Island Film Festival as one of our tries that we're trying to get into. So if we get into that, would you descend? Would you have a Luz descent on our screening?
Oh, we'll be there in waves.
All right.
Absolutely. So yes, Luz. You're the Luz clan.
So much. So I feel like we haven't spoken in a long time, and I miss you guys a ton.
I know.
And everybody sees George Jr. and says how much they get to spend time with George Jr. and all this stuff. And every single time an event lines up and somebody goes, hey, can you get into this? And I'm like, yeah, I think I can. And then everything falls apart for me. And I'm not sure, like, how it will find itself. Eventually it'll work out. But I really want to see you guys.
Well, we really miss you, too. And, you have a lot of fans out here, even just the Luz family alone, because it's a huge family. Forget it. You would be...
That's like 10,000 fans right there. The people listening at home. That's 10,000 fans. Just the Luz
Absolutely. Absolutely. And, my dad would have been so impressed with you. I think he would have been really pleased and really humbled by your interpretation of his character, really. I mean, you really did a wonderful job, and we appreciate it. And to think that he was portrayed by such a cutie.
That's what he would have said. He would have nudged him and said, hey, not a bad cutie, huh?
Yeah, what a little hottie.
Now, Lana, let me ask you a question. Was Rick able to get a hold of you guys and talk about your dad before he shot Band of Brothers?
Well, we did speak on a few occasions, at least one occasion when you were in England, right, Rick? You called and we talked about my dad. I think you were in the States too as well, but before
I left for London, I talked to your mom for a long time. Del and I had at least a good 2-hour conversation about just the little stuff, and I'll never. Your mother, I miss your mother so much. By the way, How is she?
Well, actually, she passed away last year.
No! Don't tell me that. No one told me that.
I know, it was
told me that.
Well, we've all kind of wrapped up in our own lives.
I know, Lana. I'm so sorry.
That being said, that's okay. That's all right.
I'm so sorry for me. I never got to say, man, that's, boy. And George is so, I emailed George, and he always is so sunshine, man. He's like Mr. Sunshine. He never wants to put anything on anybody, and I'm so sorry to hear that. Well, I will say this: your mother was an absolute, one of the most open individuals that I'd ever spoken to. She was an actor who was coming out of nowhere, asking all these really personal questions, and she was totally open to the entire experience. There was never a time when she goes, well, listen, honey, that's really not for you to know, and this isn't. And so the more I asked, the deeper we went, and she told me literally the stuff that I based it on your dad on. And so, I just, if it wasn't for her, I never would have played the character like I did, because your mother, everything that I interpreted was from the place, his goodness, what he tried to do for morale. But then, she also told me some of the real truths of him as she knew him as a wife, and I used that too. So she was my special love, man. I really, I'm sorry, guys. You got to understand. I spent days and days with her in Paris, and we stayed in touch for a really long time, and then people have kids and things happen, and we lost touch, and that's the first time I'm hearing of that. It's crushing me right now.
Okay.
But I'm so glad to talk to you, and my love for you guys is absolutely immense. And time has this way to do this thing where you turn around and 8 years has gone by, and you go, "What happened?"
I know, absolutely. But you are in our thoughts all the time. We think of you, and we're happy for your successes, because you certainly do deserve it. So,
Lana, I love you guys so much, and so thank you so much for getting in touch. And please give George a giant shot in the jaw for me. Break his nose or something.
All right, I'll do that.
For not staying in touch more, dirty bastard. I love you guys.
Love you too.
All right,
Lana, thank you so much for calling. We appreciate it. We really do.
Anytime. Have a great day.
Thanks, Lana.
You take care. Bye.
She's awesome, man. That family is so awesome. I can't even tell you how wonderful people they are. I mean, and that to find out about Dell right now. Sorry, guys. That's just like no one put me in a loop. Yeah, she was. We got to get off the train at Normandy, and it was my wife and me and Dell, and my wife and I flanked Dell and walked down off the platform of this train station, and maybe, I don't know, 2,000, 3,000 kids that lived in Normandy came rushing, all the cast and the veterans' wives and family that was there with these flowers, exactly how they did, 60 years ago. And it was this unbelievable moment in which she could not hold any emotion back. And she was literally shaking. She was not a big woman. She was a very small woman. And she was shaking from emotion, positive, great emotion, but that she had seen something that her husband had said, that she was going through reliving because he had passed. It was, I'll never forget it. My wife and I still talk about that moment because she was just such a beautiful, beautiful human being. And man, oh man, I can't even, she's just so beautiful. But life gets away from you, man. You turn around, like I said, it's just too much. You realize you've lost touch, and I'm so glad that she called in. I'm just so elated.
When you were talking with Delvina, did you have the stuff that she was telling you about what he told her in the field while he was in the field? That's all wiki and true life, and I know the impersonations where he got the cows out, that was all there. Everything else was pretty much true to form, right?
Yeah, I mean, it was a amalgamation of Dell's stories and sort of the personality and the honor of the man. And it's so many stories, man, from Stephen and George and all the guys and cousins and brother-in-laws and everybody, giving me little pieces of info to who he was, the strength of what he was, and I think he was so strong of a man that he was able to carry some of the pain that everybody else had by levity. And it takes a really big guy to do that. It takes a strong-hearted individual to do that. To sort of look at the other side of it when you want to cry and not do it anymore, to go like, oh, look at this asshole walking around like he knows something. And then everybody goes, ah, look at that asshole. And then you're not thinking about how shitty your life is in the moment. And so, you know, that was story after story after story after story of that. But, you know, there's other stories, too, where he commandeered the German BMW motorcycle and jumped it over the bridge and broke his arm and was downgraded from staff sergeant because of that. There's tons of I'm sorry, tech sergeant. Tons of stories where he you know, he wasn't, you know, he was the funny guy, but, you know, all of them they're pretty badass dudes, man, and doing stuff that's, you know, it's war. So it wasn't all fun and games. I mean, I'm sure, you know, it's a lot to what he went through is a lot to go through, to put it simply, and that's, you know, understating it hugely, but I think you understand what I mean.
Oh, absolutely.
It was a really amazing experience, and I think through and through, every band guy will tell you, and it's easy in retrospect, 10 years later, to say there's this thing and there's this thing, and stories have been perfected to comedy genius, and the locations have been refined, and we've all done this thing about the story of it. But really and truly, and I can tell you this from me, but I'll also say that the majority of men that I went to boot camp with and shot this show with will all tell you that all we tried to do was not fuck it up and get it right. That's all we tried to do. So when people say, hey, you did a great job and you did it, that's the relief of not, oh, great, look how great I am, I expect to get this award and do this thing. It's, thank God I didn't fuck this up. Because the men who did it for real should be memorialized in a way that is fitting to them. And I will tell you, I think every guy came at it from that angle.